panelists with us today. Let me introduce them and then we will initiate the panel discussion. We have the Honourable Minister for Environment, Rural Modernisation, Kalango Upliftment and Constituency Empowerment in the Government of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Very honoured to have you here, Minister. We have the Director of the National Disaster Management Office of Fiji Government on behalf of the Honourable Minister for Rural and Maritime Development and Disaster Management for Fiji, who I believe is in the Secretary General's community as the head of delegation. We have Mr. Bernard Wagner, who is the mayor of Belize City, and one of the first mayors, I believe, in Belize City's history to serve 3 consecutive terms as a mayor. So we're pleased to have you. And last, but definitely not least, we have our youth representative, Josenet Francis, who is a climate change advocate and active member of the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. So we're very pleased to have you, and in particular the voice of the youth, with us here today. So we will now start the panel discussion, and as I said, there will also be opportunities afterwards to share your views as participants today. But I will turn first to the Honourable Minister from Dominica, a country that symbolizes many of the facets that we have seen in the video and have covered in the discussions yesterday, and will continue to discuss over the next couple of days. Minister, feel free to share your views in terms of what you both have observed during the first day of the SIDS, how you see from your country perspective in terms of some of the priorities, what our Director General said in terms of solutions, and tell us about what your government, if you want to, sort of prioritizes when it comes to these kind of issues, especially to ensure how migrants can contribute and support the development in Dominica. But please also be honest and share both opportunities and challenges with us. So, Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're happy to be here from just next door. It's about 45 minutes to get here. It's so much cooler than back home. It's very hot here. But you see that when we speak about migration, we realize that all of us are migrants in some sense. Yeah. Coming from an island state is also what really defines what migration is all about, moving, because we move for various reasons across the region. And the exciting thing about the conference, the SIDS conference, is that you have an opportunity to share knowledge and to share experiences. But one of the concerns I do have at this particular conference is the fact that sometimes we are in this vacuum chamber, echo chamber. We hear ourselves, and we have to find creative ways to get that message out. Because it is clear to us when you look at the Pacific, you look at the Caribbean, that the major events that affect us caused by climate change, for the most part, have not been we have been able to survive for maybe in that space, but the major emitters are truly the ones we have to be held accountable. And so it has to be that resounding voice from all heads, from all delegations here at the SIDS, to ensure that we continue that sort of struggle. It is one, I think, that we started, we've done the 28th COP, I think, last year. So we've been at this for a while. Yeah. Sometimes at the policy level, there could be some fatigue because we've been pushing at this for a long time. But I think we owe it to generations of islanders to come, from all islands across the region, to keep on pushing and telling our story. So, for example, the story of resilience in Dominica is one that is quite unique in sense. Dominica is the last frontier of indigenous peoples. I am from that heritage. The people who have traveled, immigrants from the southern continent, into the region about 4,000 years ago, we become a melting pot during the colonial enterprise. People of African descent were brought in, and we have that space. And so we've been able to study that space for some time. We lean heavily on traditional knowledge to inform what we do as a country, and that is so important. But our concern for migration really was really magnified after 2017 when we were hit by a massive hurricane, Hurricane Maria. What it really did is it knocked down to over 226% of our GDP. And in so doing, we were expected to build back. And what we saw was people coming in from various agencies to assist. That's one thing. And also migration out of that space because the economy was totally devastated. So that's a critical thing for us. And that's why we were so happy to sign on to the Caribbean Strategy for Migration, which we're part of and we support. And also, which triggered us to do a national resilient development strategy, which involves a critical part to do with migration. So definitely within that structure, as a strategy, a national strategy, we are looking at the SDGs for sure, but we're also looking at building the first climate resilient country. But the critical thing for us on the island is to keep all of those developments people-centered, because we think that we can bounce back. We have after Hurricane Maria, but we need to build the resiliency with people. We think it's easy to build backwards. It may be a costly venture, but it can be done. There's the engineering skills, there's the proper materials, we could do it. But what we're concerned about the people themselves. How do we get people to bounce back? How do we get someone with a disability surviving a Category 5 hurricane? And how traumatized they would have been in that experience, knowing that they are unable to move from their homes. And so that's critical for us. So we're putting the relevant systems in place to ensure that our development is people-centered and that we are sensitive to all of the issues faced across the demographic. We have a serious concern about the people with disabilities, the vulnerable groups across the country, including that vulnerable group of people is the indigenous people. We are mindful that while there's knowledge that exists, we have to orchestrate the movement forward. And so our national strategy is one that really assists. We are pushing towards 2030 to get most of this thing done. What we realize is all of those are expensive ventures. Major commitments have always been given. In our case, we build back our country on our own, using our local resources. And even those local resources have been questioned by the very same people who are unable to make contributions to us. So when I speak about local resources, I speak to our investment by citizenship program that we have. It's a massive program that we use to build, and it's a questionable tool by the international world. And although we know for a fact that those programs do exist in most of those developed countries, but we are mindful that we need to ensure that the most vulnerable among us can survive. So the built infrastructure is key, but the resilience of people is paramount. So we are building back better, and we are building back with the support of people. I had this conversation just this morning with colleagues speaking about how do we get the understanding of the people at the grassroots level to understand what we're doing here. And we spoke earlier about the message about the SIDS and how can we impact change as a small island state. We may be representing various groups here. I sit in the cabinet representing from a policy position, but how does that trickle down to the layman, the family who's concerned about the bread and water issues? How do I survive tonight? Yeah. What do I do tomorrow? And so the migration part of it is so important, because we realize that food security is an important part of keeping sustaining our livelihoods across the region. But agriculture as a sector is one that doesn't seem to entice a lot of young people. And so we are finding ways to encourage a population that will provide for its own. And so, for instance, we do have a policy for migrants coming in to work on farms, etc. We've been on Dominica, we have been very sensitive to the Haitian situation in various counts. I think as a student of history, the Haitian Revolution and the subsequent issues that affect Haiti is one that affects all the region in a certain way. And I think for some, at certain levels we do not appreciate that and understand that struggle. And so the government of Dominica is very sensitive to migrants from the Haitian Republic as the first black independent nation in the region. And so we have policies to ensure that the migrants here and the children do get fair opportunities, that they have access to healthcare, they have access to education, they have a voice. Luckily for us in Dominica, we share a common language because we are of former French and British origin, so we have a Creole that we speak, so we communicate, and so we get by very easily. But it's something that concerns us, because I get the sense that other islands may not be as sensitive toward that movement at all, and it's a concern that we will have to discuss at the SIDS to ensure that, especially Caribbean SIDS, to ensure that the most vulnerable among us are being taken care of. Because I think it's a responsibility that we have, because we're all migrants in the first instance. A responsibility we have to ensure that we add some value to what we do as a human civilization. And so we on the island we've been given a serious mandate by the Prime Minister, building a first climate resilient country, and that means building, like I said, infrastructure, building resilient people, but also building resilient policy systems. And also, the one that sort of evades us sometimes, or sometimes is the sort of big white elephant in the room. How do we build financial resilience? Because building back better, ensuring that our borders are safe, ensuring that immigrants are taken care of, is a very expensive venture. And it appears to us, because we are operating in this capitalist structure, monetary governance structure, it is not cheap money. It is very expensive money. And so this is where we are at, and we're doing a lot of work on the island. We're hoping we could share best practices with fellow SIDS. We know the struggles of the Pacific, ever rising water levels. We know that before hurricane clears off, there's another one coming in. We face this as well in the region. But we know that struggle is a real struggle. And I think we all have a part to play. I'm excited that we do have young people in this room, because there's a notion that the youth, the future is for the youth, but I think the youth is now, the time is now. To get embedded in that conversation now. I see hope in generations of young people. I've been working with the school back home to ensure, because migrants are at the school level, children are at the school level, how do you make them feel part and parcel of your community as you build it, and as an outsider, even if they are immigrants. And so I just hope for with doing work with the youth to ensure that they have a different perspective on what we've been doing. So it's an interesting task though, because when I come to these forums like this, we meet a lot of people who are not at the policy level. And sometimes I feel guilty knowing that there's a lot of work done by technical people, by the experts. The proper science is in place. Yet at the policy level, we sometimes disregard it. Because sometimes at the policy level, we have a gut feeling. We got up one morning and we felt a certain way, and we discard the science and all the hard work done by people who really contribute significantly. And so we're pushing ahead. We are not daunted by the ever-changing sort of the shift of the goalposts by major emitters, But I think we have to continue. I'm happy that the youth are here, and also women. I think for the history of the Caribbean region, for the history of migration throughout the region, we see that women have always played a critical role. I think it's something that's coming from the conversation. Not that we want to have a carte blanche to gender issues, but I think it's an important part of the conversation that we have to have, because families are built around women in the Caribbean region. While men go out to fend and become breadwinners, etc., we saw from the history of the Caribbean the family centered around the woman. And even while women are not professionals, they have to juggle family life and also the professional life. But I just want to pause and I think the work we do in a small island states is one that we can add some value to what's happening in the global village.
Thank you, Minister, for really setting the scene for this continued discussion that we will have. I think your first message to all of us was to get the message out. We will do whatever we can, but I think that is indeed something that we all need to commit to. And thank you for sharing your experiences and your support in terms of the national strategies and also at the regional level around migration. We might hear a little bit more about that from the Pacific as well. Bounce back, that resonates with, I think, all of us, and especially around the resilience of the people and targeting vulnerable groups and communities, something that we are also working closely on. And I think lastly, we will follow your vision, the ambitious vision of being the first resilient country. So that will be something that I think will be something to follow for all of us. So thank you. And we will now turn to Fiji and the Pacific. Maybe I should also take the opportunity to mention that while I'm not from Fiji and the Pacific, I have spent quite a lot of time in that region working for IOM before I moved to New York, where I am currently based. And we're very pleased to have the director of the NDMO, Vasiti, who will speak on behalf of the minister, who, as I said, unfortunately is in another event at the moment. But it will be very interesting to hear both, again, the perspectives from Fiji as a country, but also the regional aspects that are being undertaken when it comes to migration issues. So, over to you, Vasiti, please.
Thank you, Facilitator Vlovinakol. On the outset, allow me to just bring greetings from Fiji. On behalf of my minister, the Prime Minister, and the people of Fiji, it's an honor to be here. We've enjoyed ourselves thus far. Just to put into context, who's never heard of Fiji? There's a lot of people in the room that I've attended before that's asked me where is Fiji. Next best thing I said is, you know where Australia is? We're close to that. So Fiji's strategic location in the South Pacific positioned itself in a central hub for transportation and communication network across the Pacific Islands. Our well-developed ports facility in both Suva and Lautoka, these are two big cities in Fiji, serve as a vital hub for trade and commerce, facilitating the movement of goods and services throughout the region. Our national airline, Fiji Airways, connects numerous Pacific Island countries to Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and therefore enhancing our connectivity, making Fiji a central hub in the Pacific. With that advantage, migration to and from within Fiji continues to be driven by profound transformations such as urbanization change. As we all know, the movement of rural to urban is very much prominent in Fiji. Climate change, for sure. We have more than 40 villages that are in priority list for government to relocate. We're currently working on the 7th relocation, 6th relocation completed by government. There is imminent threat for climate change that is impacting our island nation when it comes to migration. However, in the overall national policy, of course, just like any other country, as the Honourable Minister also alluded to, we have the Immigration Act that governs or regulates and manages the incoming and outgoing of our migration to ensure that it is done and done profoundly. Just in 2021, Fiji enacted the Climate Change Act, which includes provisions of planned relocations and outlines the framework for addressing climate change impacts including the potential displacement of communities. It mandates the development of a planned relocation SOP to manage the relocation of communities affected by climate change. The Climate Change Act also established the Climate Relocation of Communities Trust Fund as part of its climate resilience strategy to support the relocation of communities severely affected by climate change. This initiative focuses on ensuring that relocations are conducted in a planned, safe, and dignified manner. I'd like to also add that while the planned relocation SOP focuses on slow onset, which is something that the climate change language likes to use, disaster impacts that list very, very quickly. So while we have that 40 plus communities that are ready for relocation, just 2 years ago we had Category 5 cyclone in Fiji that hit one of our community. Apart from being one of the community that was severely affected, and we had an earthquake in the same community displacing over 100 households. And so that particular community, which was not in the 40 list, top 40 list to be relocated, bumped all the whole community and became the number one. So that's also impacting, climate change is also impacting how we are planning relocation because of the impact of disasters that are becoming more frequent and more aggressive in our home country. With regards to the planned relocation, there's a climate vulnerability assessment too. This is something that the climate change team within Fiji, or the department in Fiji, they normally do they conduct training with government officials, ensuring that the relocation becomes the last resort, where we exhaust all other elements of maintaining or adaptation measures to keep them. However, when a community has been identified for relocation, from the disaster aspect side, we have already exhausted all aspects. But because of the bureaucracy of the language around climate change, we need to check all the boxes to get the funding to be relocated. And so this is something from our side, we are advocating, we are asking flexibility when it comes to financial support for relocation, because when we say they are ready, they are already exposed. And so that list that we are advocating for support, etc., in order for them to qualify, the current planned relocation needs 100 steps for them to qualify. And that's a lot of work. There's people already displaced. The current community that are currently being displaced has been displaced for more than 3 years. We had that tropical cyclone, Yasa, Category 5, 3 years ago. And so from our side, because we need to follow the process, when there is a disaster, we have to dismantle their tents, they live in tents, move them to the evacuation center, wait for the storm to pass, and then go back, put their tent up, and move them back. And so some of these kids are actually not currently growing or living in tents and going to school. So one can imagine the psychological impact that these kids are also going through. Not just the impact of having to see the cyclone, but also how it involves, because they are going home to a tent as well. Safety and security of children, safety and security of mothers becomes an issue. So all these reasons that we see in real time is something that we're trying to advocate at the high level to say, those long list of prerequisites that you are telling us to meet, it is not happening. We are already at a state where we need them to move, but our partners are saying you need to check 100 boxes to get them to move. So we hope that this is the conversation that continues to be supported through our SIDS partners, bring it up or elevate it to the highest level, and I believe it's something that will come out strong in this meeting. Last but not the very least, and if I could just touch a bit, and I believe the Honourable Minister had touched a bit on that, on the remittances. We recognize a significant role our diaspora can play when it mitigates our domestic economy shocks, particularly those caused by natural disaster. And I just gave one example of Category 5 cyclone. The Fiji diaspora continuously demonstrates its resilience and commitment to our homeland through remittances, which serve as a lifeline during challenging times. And I've witnessed this so many times when we are responding to a disaster. Our diaspora globally are contacting us and asking us for the needs list so that they can fundraise and send us items. In Fiji, remittances have remained a significant source of financial support over the past decade, averaging 433 million annually, equivalent to 4.7% of our GDP. The majority of these funds, or over 60%, originate from our diaspora in Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. In 2019, remittances sent through formal channels amounted to over 587 million, contributing to 5% of our GDP, just slightly below inward foreign direct investment of over 694 million. In recognizing that the enduring trend of international remittances, we must acknowledge the significant contribution that our Fijians living abroad to our households, individual, and the challenges of family and friends that they face in Fiji, that they actually get that support. So as part of the questions that were posed to Fiji, like how does the diaspora support our people of Fiji, it's one of the very strong avenues in which they get the support. There is also a lot of migration mobility. A lot of our Fijians are moving across to Australia and New Zealand to fill the labor market. While that is good in the sense of financial support, that is also exhausting our own labor market. And so right now, while we are trying to face climate change, disaster, etc., migration will soon become an emergency management issue, because while people are moving or people coming in the emergency management space, when new people come in, we have to be mindful that they also have their own culture. So when we are responding to a disaster, we have to be mindful that some of the things that we do take across to them is an offense or is an insult to their culture. So it puts another layer on top of the disaster response that we normally do, which 10 years ago used to be 1 + 1 is equal to. Now it's 1 + 1 plus every other thing that we need to meet in order to not insult everyone else, to ensure that it becomes an effective response. So just sharing some of our, some of the issues that we face in Fiji. I believe you did mention, facilitator, about the work that we do at the Pacific region. We have our colleague from the Pacific Island Forum SEC with us in the room that works closely with IAM and the Pacific government with regards to the Pacific Mobility Framework, which has been endorsed, and this is looking at how Pacific Island countries' mobilization in terms of, again, the effect of climate change and all other external factors. So in a nutshell, facilitate, I'll leave it at that, but we'll be happy to take questions if there's any.
Thank you very much, CT, for sharing the experience from Fiji. Thank you for bringing up the issue of urbanization. I think we'll hear more maybe from the next speaker, our mayor, about that. But also about the work that Fiji has been doing, continues to do when it comes to planned relocation. As you said, that should be the last resort, but it is much better to have that process planned than not having it planned. And I think there again, at least from what I have seen, Fiji has quite a lot to share with other countries on the planned relocation. Remittances and the link to the diaspora is something that our Director General has been talking a lot to many of the countries from the SIDS during the 3 days that she has been here. It's definitely a concern. It's one of those where migration can create positive impacts in terms of remittances, but as you so correctly said, it can also lead to brain drain. And that is something that I know that our DG has particularly said over those last 3 days that she's been here, is something that she would like our organization to work with your government on, to see, and other players, to see how we can address. And she has an ambition to try to have something on the PIF leaders meeting agenda in August that also could lead into the social summit next year. So thank you so much. We also recognize that we have the PIF Pacific Island Secretariat present in the room, and Thea might share something later on during the discussion. But thank you so much. And we will then turn to the issues around cities, to the mayor, Mayor Wagner. With a rapid urbanization around the world of 5 billion people will live in urban areas by 2050. That's what the statistics tells us. We would like to hear your experience as a mayor, how your city, Belize City, has leveraged migration to sort of try to benefit from that. So we're very eager to listen to what you have to share with us today. So the floor is yours.
Thank you again, moderator. Good morning again, fellow panelists. Folks, it's great to be here in Antigua. My name is Bernard Wapner, Mayor of Belize City, right? And I currently serve as well as the chairperson of the Commonwealth Local Government Forum. And I'm here really to carry the agenda of the Global Task Force on Regional Governments, right? We understand that 55% of the world's population live in the urban areas of many cities. And this is expected to really increase upwards as we go into the future. Again, refugees play a critical role as well. Some of the figures we are hearing is that 60% of refugees or the internally displaced people turn to cities, right, in search of safety. And 1 in 5 international migrants live in some of the world's biggest cities. Belize City, like many other small developing states, face the same challenges, the vulnerabilities, the challenges in respect to rising sea levels, in respect to extreme weather events, right? In Belize City, we are blessed with a wonderful coral reef, but we are seeing the impact of the bleaching of the coral, the degradation of the coral reef. And these challenges impact our economic sector, because such as just like similarly to the SIDS, we rely a lot on tourism, agriculture, right, fisheries, and all the other type of economic drivers that drive our city. When we look at internal migration now into Belize, I like to look at an example where we leverage migration for resilience and relocation of Belize's capital. Previously, facilitator, I was the city that I now serve as the mayor was the capital city, Belize City. But after devastating hurricanes in 1931 and 1961, one was Hurricane Hattie, and the hurricane of 1931 killed almost 2,000 people. And it had its devastating impact economically as well. And I always resort back to our leader at that time, who we now call the father of our nation, the Right Honorable George Cadle Price. He saw climate change long ago occurring. And Belize City being a coastal city, he understood that we would be facing this type of continuous impact in years to come. And so he made that very bold decision, right, in 1970 to relocate the entire capital inland, about 52 miles inland, to now is what is called Belmopan City, which is the new capital of Belize, right? And so I always say that our father of the nation had this vision, and he understood that climate change was on its way, and it will continue to impact, and that has spurred some of the other migration in Belize City. We have seen where some of those bedroom communities being developed along the 2 corridors leading out of the city, the George Price Highway and the Philip Goldson Highway. People are now essentially migrating to those areas and now impacting in a certain way the urban form of those communities. They are rural in form, but they take on this sort of urban nature, and then it brings additional economic strain to the city to have to be able to provide the required services and provide goods and services to those areas that are not in our city but still requires the goods and services, right? When you look at external migration, Belize's geographic position really attracts migrants from Central America. We are on the mainland, right? We are bordered in the north by Mexico and on the south and west by Guatemala. But we have seen migrants coming in from Haiti. We've seen migrants coming in from as far as China and Africa, right, who seeks better opportunities. These migrants have significantly bolstered sectors like agriculture for us, construction, marine, ecotourism, and aquaculture by filling somewhat of the labor shortages that we have within our city and in the country on a whole. Right? The Belize Amnesty Mobile Migrant Hub programs, which ran from October 2022 to March 2023, really brought that into mainstream. So it facilitated a program which really garnered over 13,000 applications for migration into Belize, of which 5,681 of those migrants have been processed, which really provide them that sort of pathway to permanent residence in the city. So the government was very proactive in setting up that program because we saw that we as a country lacked the required labor force in terms of construction, working on the farms, agriculture, fisheries, marine, and that sort of thing. And so we took that advantage and really brought them in stream into our working force, labor force. Right? Replicable elements on strategic relocation, moving vulnerable population inland to safer areas can reduce climate risks and promote development. That's our view. We believe that inclusive urban planning, engaging the migrant communities in planning, ensures inclusivity and responsiveness to all residents' needs. Economic integration programs, we believe, is another way we could work with ensuring migration is mainstream, is matching migrant skills with local economic needs, which can enhance productivity and growth. Right? And leveraging the remittances, again, you spoke about remittances. Right? We have a huge diaspora population in the US, of approximately 200,000 people, 200,000 Belizeans live in the US. And so we rely heavily on those providing these type of remittances back to the city. Belize alone receive about 150 million US, and that has been on average per year back into our country. So we believe that once you are able to leverage migration in a sort of strategic way, and having all the sort of policies and initiatives marrying each other, tying with each other, that migration should, long in the future, benefit sustainable development.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and so many points in there, but thank you for highlighting the Global Task Force, which I have witnessed myself doing some very, very good work, and you are an instrumental part of that. Again, you outlined how migration leads to both challenges and opportunities. There can be economic constraints for cities, of course, when it comes to providing those services, in addition to the people that you know have lived there, but they're not coming in. But also, as you said, for example, in agriculture, you mentioned that you had a labor shortage, and now you have migrants coming all the way from Africa, China, and other countries. Of course, everybody has heard about the migration in Central America, but I think we tend to forget that, as you said, there are also migrants coming through your countries from both Africa and Asia. So thank you so much, and for again highlighting the remittances. It's a clear theme here of the discussions today that maybe doesn't get the recognition of importance that it maybe should. We take for granted that remittances are coming, but I think we need to have a discussion around how we can facilitate that even further in the future. And now, last but definitely not at least, we'll now turn to the future, the voice of the youth, to guide us a bit about what you think and what we need to do in order to make sure that we work towards a future that addresses these challenges that we're talking about, and especially from the SIDS perspective. What have you heard while you have been here, probably attending the youth forums and leading up to the SIDS conference that you would like to share with us? You have everybody's attention, so please, over to you. Tell us what needs to happen for the future.
I would say we need to get away from the hush culture. I feel like this generation, we have used TikTok and social media, and we're very vocal about things. So you'll see a lot of trends where we're now talking about rape, and we're talking about different things, and the same thing has to apply to sustainable development, migration, and any issue. We have to tell the generation before us, it is okay to travel. You're going to travel, you're going to have a few tough ones. We need to let people know the benefits of traveling. You're going to leave and you're going to get education opportunities and employment opportunities. And a lot of the time, talking from a younger generation, the old people don't tell you that. So we are, again, in a kind of a bubble that we're growing up and they're not really telling us the truth. So we need to get away from the culture of harsh, but we're going to share our experiences, and our experiences are going to be the better ones. And then as young people, we're going to use that and we're going to make informed decisions. Because living in Antigua, a lot of my colleagues, they left because of opportunities, and they are good and there's bad. It's just about us as a country weighing it out and really discussing, because you're gonna leave, and I find that one of my friends in particular, she's like, she's never gonna come back home. No, but she's gonna send back money to build a house here, so that when she's older and New York is too cold, at least she's gonna be able to come back home. And she, every time somebody's like, so I'm like, Crystal, can I come for summer? She's like, I need to check the calendar, because she's the only friend that we all know can go to, so there are benefits with migration. And I will say one of the challenges is we don't know about sustainable development goals. So I'm an activist now, so I know what the sustainable development goals. Our organizations, our program tackles 7 of them directly. However, the regular person on the street doesn't know about sustainable development goals. And that has been something that has been resounding all around, that people do not know what are the goals. So what we have to do again is we gotta amplify talking about it. Can I see a raise of hand? Did anybody drive here and see anything that says T20? Yeah, you saw something. What happened is, right by the roundabout, when you kept coming from the airport, there was something that says T20, and then there's the big logos. We have to get to the place where when we talk about migration and sustainable development goals, we're putting it in the face of the people who do not normally see it. We were talking this morning, ironically, the loggers in Dominic. My dad is a logger. He goes to bush and he cuts his water, and that's what he's been doing for years. He doesn't know anything about sustainable development goals. However, if it probably won't come from me, because as his child is gonna say, but if somebody else, maybe we can educate them about what the goals are and how their actions impact and how we can be a part of change. A lot of bus drivers, a lot of the people, a common thing that a lot of people didn't know what SIDS is. We needed billboards and campaigns surrounding SIDS so that the layman knows, the person on the grassroots level knows. Because change is not gonna happen with anybody in this room directly. You know why? We know what the problem is. We're here talking about the problem. We're here trying to, but does the vendor down the street know? The vendor down the street is who we really need to educate. Our program is designed to educate children from 5, kindergarten, to 16, Form 5. That's 12 solid years of us teaching them about volunteering, recycling, and tree planting, and the sustainable development goals. Because when the next SIDS happen, I'm not gonna be sitting here, but one of them will be. So we have to ensure that they know that little voice in the back of the car is gonna go home and say, Mommy, you know, I learned about no poverty today. You know, I learned about this. And it cannot just be a talk show. It has to be something that they actually see it's fun. Facebook has we need to invent a game about sustainable development. I don't know it, but I'm pretty sure there are lots of stuff that we can think. We gotta think outside of the box now, because I can definitely say, and one of the things that keeps echoing in all of the meetings that we're going, the people in the room know the problem. We need the people outside of the room to be a part of the solution, because that is truly how we're going to achieve the sustainable development goals. We're going to be able to share that there's positives with migrations, there's negatives, and we have to find that balance. And it's only going to happen when we get away from this hush culture and we just keep talking about it, putting it in every single part of our lives.
Thank you so much. I think there is something to think about for everybody in your statement. It doesn't help to have it here, right? It needs to be out. And I think a lessons learned for us is probably that instead of these kind of side events, I wonder if maybe next time we should challenge ourselves to do something outside of the SIDS conference area, because maybe that's where the action will come from, as you said, and hopefully it will. So thank you for provoking us all a bit. I think that's what we need, but also for telling the voice of the youth, what you would like us all to work with you on in order to get the future that you want. And I guess let's take on the challenge to develop the SDG game, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Somebody that is much better in technology than I am might take that one on. But can we give a big hand to our panelists? Thank you so much for sharing your experience today. We have 15 minutes for questions, sharing your own thoughts, reflections. Please introduce yourself when we give you the floor. I just wanted to check first if there is anybody from Capo Verde in the room. No, because, okay. Then I saw the first hand over there. Yes, so please introduce yourself and, yeah.
Thank you. I'm David Hilton from the Jamaica Climate Change Youth Council. I did a project with Ironman's internal migration in Jamaica, focusing is for Minister of Federal. We have a comment and a question. A comment